Fishing trips anywhere, anytime. FishingBooker.com. Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
Midway USA knows the hobbyist, doing basic gun repairs and upgrades. Midway USA also knows the accomplished professional doing precision work as a trade. At Midway USA, we have the gunsmithing supplies you need, from firearm-specific tools and fixtures to general tools like screwdrivers, punches, stamps, wrenches, hammers, and files. Shop our wide selection of calipers, micrometers, dial indicators, gauges, and other measurement tools. Browse through our site for paint, stain, polish, and finish, as well as bluing and other metal finishing products. For just about everything for gunsmithing, shop MidwayUSA.com.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. Episode 338, that's what you're listening to. And two things that we need to talk about today. First, it's the subject matter of the podcast at large, and that is why you should buy some things even though you might want to buy other things. And I'll explain what I mean here in a second. But it also means that we are 2 episodes away from the next podcast in which I take time to interact with listener and reader questions, comments, and accusations. So if you have a particular question or you have a topic that you would want me to interact with directly, first of all, know that I will get back to you via email. But secondly, let me know, Matthew at castingacross.com, and if I think it's the kind of thing that would be really valuable for the entire class to hear, then we will go ahead and talk about that. Actually, I recently had a question where somebody says, I know that you're going to email me back, but could you talk about this? And I'm sure I'll do that for that request. Not every request is going to get that, but this request is going to get that. So let me know, questions, comments, or accusations, Matthew at castingacross.com. I guess one more thing to throw in there from the administrative side. If you have yet to leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please go ahead and do so. That's helpful to get the podcast in front of the eyes and ears of more people, and there's nothing but good things that come from that. All right, so let's dive right into it. This is another gear-focused podcast, and this one is specifically a spin on the fly fishing gear you need, fly fishing gear you don't need, what I think is a priority, that kind of thing. But this is like basically how your money could be better spent elsewhere. All right, how your money could be better spent elsewhere. Now, a few things. I, of all people, am not going to sit here and say, if you want something, you shouldn't get it. Especially if you are an adult, you have the resources, you're making an informed decision, and you're doing so in a responsible way. Like, I'm not going to say that someone who can afford and wants a $2,500 bamboo fly rod shouldn't buy it. There's a lot of people that should not buy such a thing, but there's a lot of people that also shouldn't buy a $250 fly rod. So again, please don't hear this and say, "Oh, I really want that piece of gear." He's saying I shouldn't buy it, and so he's an idiot. I mean, I could be, but hear me out. And here's my first example. Okay, don't buy that. Buy this. Especially if you are a new angler. And I know a lot of my audience is either a new fly fisher or they're wanting to kind of get a perspective that would be appropriate for a seasoned angler, but also applicable to a new angler. If you see trout fly reels and you see one that's $300, $400, $500, $600, this is for fishing for trout now, here in the United States and most other places in the world, that's not what you need to be spending your money on. So I have some really nice fly reels for trout, like really, really nice disc drag. Nothing crazy, but some really high-end things, and they're overkill. Now, I don't say that because I'm only wrangling with 7-inch brook trout up in the mountains or 12-inch stocked rainbows on my local streams. I'm saying that they're overkill for the big trout that I catch on like the upper Delaware River system, for the big trout that I catch. I fished for in the tailwaters down south. They're overkill for the really big browns that I hook up on spring creeks. I don't need it. It's a nice thing to have, but I've also fished those exact same water using my click and pawl reels, and I've not thought it was some great disadvantage. There are days after fishing a long time where I'm really playing the fish on the reel a lot, and I'm fishing in fast current. I'm hooking up a strong fish, and they don't have to be massive, but after a day of catching 14-inch fish, 16-inch fish, it's nice to really have a good reel that's going to assist you. So I'm not saying that having a good drag on a well-built reel is not a good thing. It's that you can find that these days in that $150 to $250 range. You don't need to spend the $500 to $600 on a trout reel for even for big water. But like I said, if you really want it, if you're seeing one of these reels, and I've got a couple of brands in mind that I'm thinking of, and they're beautiful and they're machined well and they are going to last forever, then don't feel bad about it. But if you are saying, hey, I have X amount of dollars to spend, um, I think that you're probably better spent buying a good fly reel at that $200 to $300 price point, and then buying the best fly line you can buy. I've said this countless times, but instead of buying, spending your entire budget on a fly reel and then seeing whatever fly line is there, I would say find the best fly line that's available, and then find the best fly rod, or excuse me, fly reel that you think you can kind of get away with. And, even probably save a little bit of money in doing that. Nothing against some of these beautifully, colored now, but beautifully designed and machined, and all the technology that goes in the drag of these reels. But you can, for trout especially, and even to a certain degree, like close in saltwater. So like estuarine fishing. So I'm thinking for stripers and for redfish and stuff like that. You know, I have had so much luck with stripers with, machined reels but they're under, $350. And for a saltwater reel, that's like entry level for machined and sealed disc drag. But all of that to say, you are better served in spending, I would say, less money on a reel and a little bit more money on the fly line. You are going to be able to cast better, and under most circumstances, that is where you're going to gain the largest benefit on, especially on trout rivers. So first thing I would say is, instead of spending a lot of money on this really, really high end trout reel, spend a little bit more money on the fly line. But again, that's a jump of maybe from $70 to $125. And the benefits of that, I talk about elsewhere. The benefits of it are going to be the materials that are used, the taper in the design, maybe even benefits like a coating that's applied to it that's going to give you a little bit more slick casting, as well as a little bit more durability. So that's the first thing. The second one is similar to it. Uh, Instead of buying the nicest waders you can buy the nicest boots you can buy. Okay. So instead of buying the highest dollar waders and then getting whatever boots, which is a lot of the conversations I've had with people, that's kind of the approach they take. Because, the waders feel bigger, because they are. I mean, you hold them up and they cover your whole body. And so you want to get the nicest thing you can get. But I think you can get mid-range waders. And these days, even kind of a lot of the major brands, kind of entry level or the step up from that. So maybe not their budget model, but their first kind of, core lineup, that wader is phenomenal. And compared to what I was fishing with, 25 years ago, it is just absolutely amazing, the quality of a kind of a mid-range core model wader from some of these major manufacturers. So yes, there's nice things that you can get for that $700 pair of waders. I mean, they have bells, they have whistles, maybe there's a little bit more seam tape, maybe that there's a little bit more reinforcement around the knees and the seat, but you're going to get a lot of that at that kind of maybe $300 mark. Zippers, I've talked about before. I like a zippered wader. It is a luxury. It's not something that you absolutely need. There's most zipper waders don't do what you think they do, gents. They don't go all the way down to the point where if you have to relieve yourself, then you can simply unzip your waders. You're still going to have to take them apart. But all that to say, wading boots, I think, are a much more important investment. The reason being, you are going to protect your waders, your knees, your seat, all that sort of stuff, if you are not falling down. And you're also going to protect your body, which is a lot more expensive than any piece of fly fishing gear that is out there. I've seen the hospital bills, and they are more than even the nicest rod and reel combo that's out there. And so, if you get a good pair of boots that fits you well, that is built and designed for the kind of fishing, wading, and hiking that you're doing with your particular, foot and build and mobility in mind, you are going to be so much happier than if you have the highest end waders. It's kind of like the bottleneck is at the boot. The bottleneck is not at the waders. So that is to say, your boots are really going to have a greater impact on your day of fishing than your waders are. You are going to have a worse day fishing with really, really nice waders and crummy boots than you are with having the best boots you can find and just good waders that are going to keep you dry. So my suggestion, especially as you're getting older, especially if you do have any mobility issues, or if you're going to be doing a lot of walking, or you're going to be doing a lot of long days of fishing or multi-day fishing trips, then really spend a lot of money on high-end boots. The best boots that are going to give you the best support, that are going to give you the best toe protection, that are going to give you the best ankle protection, that are going to have lacing systems that are going to be secure so you're not messing with them all the time. You're able to adjust the lacing to adapt to your foot. They're going to fit your foot well. They're going to fit your ankle well. They're going to fit your booty for your wading sock well, for your waders. All of those things matter a lot. Boots that are going to have soles that are rugged and durable, that are going to have options for you. And obviously, when we talk about options, corkers and their interchangeable system is certainly the first thing that comes to mind. But, there are definitely boots that offer a removable studs, which again is a really, really helpful thing. And usually the nicer boots are going to have more options when it comes to that. So, studs that you can take in and take out as opposed to just screw in. And then when you pull out, you really can't put them back on the same place. Otherwise, you compromise the stability of that sole and that rubber. So I am all about, again, spending the more money. And this is a lot like that last conversation with the reel versus the line. Going from a good reel to the high end reel is a doubling the cost. Going from $250 to $500. Whereas going from fly line, you're only going from 75 to maybe 125. So it's a much smaller investment. The same thing is true of waders and boots. You go from that mid range core level wader, so let's say $250, $300, to the high end wader, you're saying $600 or plus dollars for those waders. Whereas with the boots, you're talking the difference between maybe the 150 up to like the 250, and you're getting a whole lot more bang for your buck on those good quality boots. And so I think it really comes down to what are you going to experience a benefit from most immediately. And for both of these two issues, I would say that or these two items, you're going to experience a better fishing experience with your fly line versus your reel, and with your boots as opposed to your waders. Now, once again, I just want to reiterate, if you want to buy the nicest stuff and you can, and it's not going to be a problem, go for it. All right, third thing, and here is the one that maybe a lot of people are going to say, well, of course. But if you're a new angler and you see on Instagram, or you see driving around town, or you see at the boat launch, the guys that have the rooftop fly rod racks, they have a place and they have a purpose, and there's some people that get a lot of use for them. And there's some people where it just means that their rods live up there as opposed to in their garage. And if that's going to be your situation, then save the high dollar amount that demands, because they're not inexpensive. Those rooftop fly rod racks are not cheap. Now, they have a place. If you are a guide, if you are on the river every day, if you are fishing in a way that requires multiple rods to be rigged up and ready, then it makes sense. And also, if you're in a place where you're either secure and safe enough to do that, you're in a climate where your rods aren't going to be baking on top of your car, and also where it's secure. You're not going to get them stolen. Because I was jogging the other day and I was in the middle of nowhere here in New Hampshire, and this guy had his truck with his rod rack parked on the side of the road and he was either fishing or hunting. I assume he was hunting, and I hadn't seen another car drive by in a long time. I mean, that's where people have gotten their stuff broken into. And all he had was it's a plastic casing. All you need is a pair of bolt cutters. Now, I'm certainly not encouraging anybody to get into it, but that's just one of the concerns, and they're not inexpensive. So I'm not against them. I actually seriously considered buying one a few years ago, only because I constantly have a handful of rods rigged up when I go because of my kids, and it's easier to keep them up and outside of the car as opposed to inside of the car. But I ended up opting away from getting one. So there are situations where they are better. So instead of buying that, this is what you should consider. For very short money, there are inside the car rod storage options. Okay, but my favorite one by far is a old style rod reel kind of storage case that you can keep your rod just broken down into two pieces, and assembled and ready to go with your reel on the reel seat. That way, everything is out of the way and it is not super conspicuous, and you can still get to it quickly. Now, those are still a little bit expensive in the sense that they probably run, even if you were to get like a generic one off of Amazon, 45 to $50, but certainly it's not the hundreds and hundreds of dollars for the rooftop rack. But even better, and you can save yourself a ton of money and you'd be ready to roll. They have been making these rod stocks, and every company I seen has one. Loon makes them. 3M Scientific Anglers makes them. I'm sure a lot of people make them because it's basically the same thing, but it almost looks like the Chinese finger trap design, and it kind of rolls up on itself. But what you can do is you can have your rigged up rod, and then you can break it in half, and then you slide the sock over it, and it's not rigid by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also not cloth. So there's a tiny bit of protection. And then there's a little elastic band that you can loop over your butt of your rod, and then you throw a real case on there. I like the ones from Vitavu, and your rod is ready to fish in heartbeat. And even if it is rigged up with your line running up through the guides, because of the way these rod socks work, it's not going to spin and get tangled as you've probably experienced. And you can keep that in your car. You can keep it in your house that way. Ideally, you keep your rod broken down and you keep your line out of your guides. But I know how it is. If you're fishing a lot or you're wanting something quick, then you're going to keep things rigged up. So that is a much, much more affordable option than the rooftop rack. And for most anglers who are fishing maybe a couple times a week, maybe a couple times a month, it is a much more reasonable choice to make. All right, so I'm probably not. I'm preaching to the choir with that one, but all right. So the first one, get line, not the fancy reel. Secondly, get nice boots, not the nicest waders. Thirdly, do anything besides putting a roof rack on your car. And last, and real quick, if you want to buy those things, I am not going to be judgmental. I see those things, and like I said, I look at them, I'm like, oh man, I'd love to have that really, really high-end reel that looks like a brook trout. I'd really like to have those waders with all those fancy little bells and whistles. I would like to have it's 8 fly rod storage on top of my vehicle. It'd be great. But I've just prioritized other things, right? The last one I would say is flies. Now, what do I mean by buying these flies as opposed to those flies? I have known, particularly a lot of new anglers, but new anglers that have means will go online and just buy flies like crazy. I've met a handful of people that are brand new anglers who they, whether it be on the stream or whether it be, the parking lot, they said, hey, what should I use? And they open their fly box and it looks like a fly box of a professional guide that has a ton of time on their hands to sit around and organize their flies. It is just chocked full with any pattern, every life stage of every bug. And a couple times I've asked somebody, like, "Wow, did you tie these, or did you, if you win this in the lottery or something like a raffle?" They said, "No, I just went out and I bought all these. I found a nice fly tire online that I liked, and I just bought $500 worth of flies." Multiple times I've had that conversation with people. And again, if that's what you want to do and you like filling up your vest, then by all means go for it. To be fair, I did that relatively recently for a saltwater trip where I know I could have done what I'm about to suggest here, but I just wanted to knock it out in one quick order. And so I probably spent $120 on saltwater flies. But these are also flies that I can use up here more often than not up in New England. They're not just for down in the Gulf like I was going to be fishing. But my suggestion, instead of just loading up your fly boxes right off the bat, is to buy as you go. You will be much, much more prepared and have a much more functional fly box if you do one of two things. If you go on trips, then maybe get a couple of flies in an anticipatory manner, but buy some at that local fly shop. They are going to sell you exactly what you need. Secondly, with your home waters, as you fish, figure out what works and what you have confidence in. And then once you are using those flies, then go to your local fly shop and load up with those. I have no problem with somebody who opens up their fly box and it is just chock full of, size 14 and 16 elk hair caddis and woolly buggers and brassies and, foam ants. And that's all that's in there. I never look at that fly box and say that person's crazy. I look at that fly box and say they know what they like using and they know what works. So again, no judgment if you go out and spend all the money on all the flies, but I think it's a much more economical. I know it's a much more economical approach, and I think it's probably a much more maybe thoughtful approach to build up your fly collection slowly. You can always buy more flies, but it's really hard to return flies once you've bought them. So those are just four things where I would say instead of buying that, buy this. Instead of buying the nicest reel that you can afford, buy a good trout reel and then buy the best line you can afford. So, you have $500 to spend. Instead of going $425 on the reel and $75 on the line, go $125 on the line and then, spend $300 on the reel. Same thing with boots and waders. Spend more money in your boots, and then whatever you have left over, get the best waders that you think that you need. With the rooftop rack, you can buy that, but instead of buying the rooftop rack, there's a lot of in-the-car storage options that are still going to give you that flexibility. Going to save you a lot of money, and it may potentially, avoid some other hassles. And then lastly, instead of buying all the flies up front, buy the flies as you go. I think that all four of those are great ways to go for beginners, but also for people who are trying to be a little bit more budget conscious. But I'm going to say it one more time. If you want to do everything completely the opposite of what I just said, that's okay. Different strokes for different folks. If you have any questions about that, any accusations about that, you think I've got it wrong, let me know, Matthew@castingacross.com. If there's another example of that, then let me know, Matthew@castingacross.com. This week on Casting Across, 2 articles. The first one is called Underneath Counts, and this is my review of the whitewater, I believe it's pronounced Looseway jogger. So I think that one of the silliest things is to spend a lot of money on nice waders and then wear just whatever underneath them. Jeans, khakis, your pajama pants, the $15 sweatpants from Walmart. You should be wearing something that is going to optimize your wader's breathability. I know a lot of people who've thought that their expensive waders were leaking when all it was is that they had cotton pants underneath that got bunched up around their knees or around their ankles, and so they sweat. And a pair of breathable waders, no matter if you spend $200 or $2,000 on them, are not going to wick away all the perspiration of your, crammed up sweatpants. So these joggers are not inexpensive, but they're comparable to a lot of the products that are made by fly fishing companies. But these were designed for people who are out on open water. So whitewater, they primarily cater to northern anglers. So a lot of their stuff is crappie and walleye and that sort of stuff. So these are really comfortable pants. They sent them to me for me to check out and review. You can check out that whole review there on that article called Underneath Counts. Wednesday's article was another fly fishing book review video, and this week's is called A Special Kind of Fly Fishing Road Trip, and it is a review of David Van Wee's Storied Waters. And it is 35 fabled fly fishing destinations and the writers and artists who made them famous. So I will just give the quick synopsis of a very quick video, and that is, this is a road trip book where the stops in the road trip are not the best fly fishing destinations. Sometimes they are, but it is about places that were prominent in angling literature or angling art. So it's a really good, fun book. definitely check out the video, and that will send you in the right direction to learn more about the book. This week's recommendation on the podcast actually fits right in with that first category I was talking about. And for $239, you can get a spectacular machined reel by Redington. And the newest reel in their lineup is called the Ace. And it is an incredibly solid aluminum machined reel with a really cool design, but it is a very functional design. And it's light, but not so light that it's not going to balance out a good trout rod. And it's going to give you everything you need for fishing in virtually all trout fishing situations. It has a strong, durable drag. It is a drag that is just going to last a long time. It's going to fight lots of fish. And again, I think that this is an example of a reel that illustrates my point that you can spend a good amount of money and get a great reel. Big, oversized drag knob. Designed to not have any kind of kink points, both around the reel seat as well as around the drag knob. Just well thought out. I was really excited when I saw them back this winter at the fly fishing shows, and I picked one up, the 5.6 in the tobacco color, which is kind of sharp. So I highly recommend it. I'm excited about getting into even more fish with it this season. I'll put a link for the Redington Ace on this podcast show notes at castingacross.com. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app and then go and rate the podcast in Apple Podcast and Spotify. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
Create stories for life on a scenic Eclipse Mediterranean voyage. With Scenic, it's more than a journey of a lifetime. It's ultra-luxury cruising along elegant European Rivieras and idyllic Italian coastlines. It's being immersed in the history and culture of glamorous cities, towns, and villages. It's colorful architecture, landscapes, and regional cuisine. Scenic Eclipse, in a class of its own. Book your all-inclusive voyage now and save.
Hey, what's up, happy people? This is Robert Arrington from Deer Meat for Dinner. If you're into bow fishing like I am, you need to check out Cajun Bow Fishing. I've been using their gear for years, from the Sucker Punch Pro to the Winch Pro Reel. It's tough, it's reliable, and it works. Whether you're just getting started or you're ready to take the step to the next level, head over to CajunBowfishing.com and check out everything Cajun Bow Fishing has to offer. I trust their gear because it works. So if you're hitting the water soon, make sure you're rigged up with Cajun Bow Fishing. You will not regret it.